We do have some good news, though.
Saquon
Penn
Barkley
State
came up.
That's right. Gets rewarded. Yeah. He gets a 2-year extension worth a little over $41 million, $36 million guaranteed at signing, with the ability to make an additional $15 million in incentives and escalators. He becomes the highest-paid running back in history. And Brady Quinn, you called this. You expected there would be an adjustment to the contract, even though it was 1 year in, based on the season he had. And Howie Roseman does it again. Rewards his guy.
It's only fair. And Howie Roseman's done this time and time again, kind of rewarding guys and players off of seasons like this. So it's not surprising. I think what is going to be surprising some folks out there is we saw James Cook really like the announcement of the Saquon Barkley extension. I don't foresee this happening to a lot of other running backs. I think the problem is you still have the same issues that running backs have faced in regards to the cheap supply of labor, meaning the college football players who are coming up through the ranks. This class is a solid class. You've got a back who, was historic in nature in Ashton Genty amongst another group of running backs that you can find in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th rounds that are going to be really good. This is a deep running back class. So you have that issue. You also have the issue of other running backs who really haven't played as significant of a role as Saquon Barkley. And so it's there, Saquon got a ton of touches, obviously a ton of, targets as well in the passing game, but he's also was able to stay healthy last season. You look at some of these other running backs, they've had a hard time being consistently healthy. Now, you could have said that about Saquon before last year, but Philly signed him, and they weren't afraid to dip back into that with what they saw from him this past year, helping them win the Super Bowl. So I look at it and say, it's awesome for Saquon. He's a unicorn, though, and I don't foresee this happening a ton for running backs moving forward. I think one of the things you have to keep in mind as we look at the dollar value of contracts that will go up, it's in part because the salary cap has gone up. You have to really look at the percentage of the cap that's allocated to that position, if that makes sense, because that's more what's important, because that percentage is going to stay about the same. There's kind of a number that you're going to see in regards to how much a team wants to put as part of the salary cap towards that specific position.
I think it's cool that he was rewarded in a moment in time where he could have broke the record. Like, he could have broke the single season rushing record for yards, and he did what the team wanted to do. He did what the coach wanted to do. He did what they felt was best for the organization, and it ended up ultimately paying dividends for them. They get a Super Bowl. Now it makes the story much more bearable in the annals of history, right? Like, if they lose the Super Bowl, if they don't make it to the Super Bowl, I feel like they did him a tremendous disservice, a tremendous disservice. And the fact that something that would last forever, that he can pass down, and I still think that is kind of a miss. It is what it is, but something he could pass down to his kids can pass down to their kids, they can pass it down, so on and so forth. He gets rewarded financially for showing that not only was he the man and a mature, positive influence on the field, but he was that off of it as well. And so to me, to know Saquon, if you've ever met him, if you know him, he's one of the dopest dudes you'll meet. Like, I totally stamp, Saquon. Like, when you meet somebody, you meet certain people, unlike Jonas and Q, it's like, but you meet people like Saquon.
Damn.
And I'm messing with y'all. When you meet a guy that's an impressive guy, you, in a lot of situations, you recognize it very quickly. He just has a different aura about him. He's different. He's a very humble dude, very soft-spoken dude, and he's just someone that you enjoy being around when you had the time to be around him. And I had the opportunity to be around him his entire college career, and he was just always a good dude. And so to me, the ultimate measure of a man is how you handle yourself, not only when you're comfortable, but in adverse situations. And he's been in some really tremendously adverse situations. And just to think that someone as loyal as Saquon was and is as a person, and what he gave to that New York franchise, and for them to treat him the way that he did, and for it to play out on television, that's, in a lot of ways, people may look at what it represented and what it meant for the owner and his soundbite saying what he said, but how many people talk about what Saquon Barkley had to endure and live through in that moment in time? That's embarrassing. That's embarrassing. It's a tad bit, I don't want to say demeaning. That's too strong. But he had to go through some mental, emotional gymnastics. I'm certain, knowing that a team that you were loyal to, a market that you loved, you didn't want to leave, basically turned their back on you and said, we're not going to pay you. Yeah, we're not going to pay you what you're worth, and it's time for you to move on.
And think of it, multiple times, because the year before they didn't want to do a deal, and it was like, well, is he going to hold out? Is he going to hold out? And instead he showed up, and they like sweetened the pot a little bit or gave him a little bit more.
Right, they gave him a little bit more guaranteed money. And listen, and he said, I was willing to go earn it. And he came in and he said, this is about my teammates and it's about my team, and I'm not going to hold out. He's always been that dude. It's just nice that you get to see that type of commitment and that type of person get rewarded on the back end of what he did.
By the way, I think I knew this but had forgotten about it, or I just didn't know it at all. I didn't realize that his uncle was Iran Barkley, the boxer from back in the day. I had no idea. Like, his uncle was Iran Barkley.
Hey, did you guys know Saquon Barkley's uncle is Iran Barkley?
Hey, Q, I got to give you some breaking news, bro.
Yeah.
Iran Barkley, that's Saquon's cousin, man. Yeah, that's
Lee,
his family, man.
Lee, look this up. I'm almost can you look this up? Because I think I have this right. I believe Iran Barkley is Saquon's uncle, I believe. For you boxing novices out there who don't know the legendary fighters from back in the day. He fought everybody.
Great nephew.
Everybody. Great nephew.
Yeah.
There you go.
See?
I said cousin, but, I meant great nephew. Hey, did y'all know that Iran Barkley was the great uncle of Saquon Barkley?
Putting you up on that game.
Yeah.
Great game.
What is a great nephew, by the way?
A great nephew would be the equation of your grandmother or grandfather's sibling. Your grandmother or your grandfather's sibling would make you,
okay.
or your great grandma or great great. Yeah,
it's your great grandma. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Sweet.
But then again,
because if you use that as an adjective, it's like, oh, well, that's just a great nephew, right?
Yeah. Whoa.
What?
Is
that supposed to be a joke, Lee?
I thought that was funny. As an adjective, it's just a great nephew.
I'm just saying, if you read that in print, you'd be like, oh, he's a great nephew.
He's the best nephew.
I was just saying, like, he's got to be the favorite nephew of anyone there. I mean, the guy just won a Super Bowl. He could have broke the record. Yeah.
A great uncle would be the sibling of one of your great grandparents. Simply